So, listen, I have this idea.
Tell me.
I don't interview you. We talk as we would normally do.
It's fine.
And we generate meaning and we flow.
Fine.
And,
like that.
Which means that I ask you things, but you ask me things too.
Yeah, of course.
And if I ask you something you don't want to answer, you just say, I'm not answering to this, and vice versa. Okay. I have a hard time imagining that you will ask me something that I don't want to answer to, because I'm so transparent, but might do this mistake with you. So I will. So if you know, I think because I want to keep it like very flowy, very lively, and
I agree to
that. I think the best way to do these things is not to try, if you know what I mean.
Just do.
Yeah, exactly. So, and since we already know each other and are kind of aligned on many things, I think to do something cool, we just talk as we normally do. We should have recorded probably like most of our conversation, like the one you had last time in Berlin.
I guess so, yeah.
If you think about it. So
I had a great time in Berlin, by the way.
Likewise. And so I would say I'll put when I post this thing, little words about who you are, what you do, your LinkedIn, but we should just talk, I would say.
Yes, fine with me.
So do you want
idea.
Do you want to center for a couple of minutes before we move on?
I'm already quite centered. If you need it, then we could do this.
I think I'll do it actually, like a minute, just a minute. So do you wanna? Why don't you guide me through this minute? Would you like to do that?
It's the easiest thing. Okay, let me guide you. I have drop everything, put your timer away. I'll handle this.
Okay.
So let me see. I have a timer application here. Yeah, I do have a timer application here. Okay, dear Antonio, please sit up straight, shoulders back, close your eyes. And now comes the easiest part. I want you to do nothing except for breathing. Maintain the posture, of course. Breathe in, breathe out, and track your breathing with your mind by always reminding you, I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. And of course, every time you deviate, every time your mind wanders outside, once tries to attach itself to something that is not breathing, you come back to, I breathe in, I breathe out. It could happen that you hear a bird and you think, you wonder, well, what's this? Who is that? But then you remind yourself to come back to your breathing. Breathing in and breathing out. Now would be a great time to intensify your breathing. Breathe in a little deeper. Exhale a little more. And not opening your eyes yet. Start moving the body slightly. Start with the fingers. Wiggle the toes. Move your hands a little. Maybe your feet. Move the legs, move the arms. And slowly open your eyes. Welcome back to the world.
Love it. Thank you.
Most welcome. Most welcome. That's what I do. That's what I do.
That's what you do. So, right. I found I discovered an artist like a couple of months ago, but I didn't really delve too much into it. But he's a computational artist, so somebody that uses code to to come to terms with the absolute, I would say. And his name is Memo Acton. He's an associate professor. I think he's brilliant. So there is a 4-minute video that basically gives you an oversight of his work. Would you like to watch it with me?
Yeah, because share.
Yeah. So it's. Oh wait. No, let me redo this. Hold on, because I wanna share it with yeah. Okay. Cool. So are you ready?
Ready, set, go.
Okay. Hold on. It's 4 minutes.
Hi, my name's Memo Acton. I'm a computational artist, and my biggest inspiration is studying the nature of nature. This spans from the nuclear fusion in the heart of the sun to the photosynthesizing organisms that fuel all of life on the surface of the earth, to the incredibly complex hyperobject that we call human civilization and culture. I use computational approaches as a lens and language to abstract the behavior of these natural and anthropogenic processes to create data dramatizations. My research centers around expressive human-machine interaction and interventions that encourage meaningful human control, a term that I appropriate from the autonomous weapons literature. Framing technology as not external to us, but as extensions of our body, as extensions of our mind, I study its impact on us as individuals, on how we behave and how we express ourselves. And as cogs in a much larger machine, its broader impact on the complex networks that we form, on culture, and ultimately on our values, our laws, traditions, and rituals. As part of studying the nature of nature, I'm also very interested in studying the nature of the mind and how we make sense of the world. I am 70 trillion separate cells, more than half of which are not even human, and yet they all work together such that their interactions gives rise to the sensation that I have this one single unified body with a single unified sense of I, coordinated by the brain, an incredibly complex non-linear dynamical system in a constant state of oscillation, while its internal balance is continually perturbed. It's constantly seeking equilibrium, making predictions, and resulting in what we call perceiving, thinking, and feeling. The image that we see in our conscious mind is not a mirror image reflection of the outside world, but it is a reconstruction, a hallucination, based on our expectations and prior beliefs. So in my work, I create data dramatizations of natural and anthropogenic processes, and I explore state-of-the-art machine learning algorithms as a means to reflect on ourselves and how we make sense of the world. When an artificial neural network looks out onto the world and tries to make sense of what it's seeing, it can only see through the filter of what it already knows. Just like us, because we too see things not as they are, but as we are.
gorgeous.
Right? So
Minoactin, yeah.
It's remarkable, right? So the reason why I wanted to show you this thing is because not only the images and the music, but the kind of things he says. Just layout of 5 hours conversation we could possibly have about anything. Like, I'm just gonna throw some expressions at you, and then you can pick whichever you want, or make up your own, ignore, like, do what you want with it. Anyway, so he says, I studied the nature of nature. And it's interesting because we often forget that the word nature in Latin means to be born, nascere. So the nature of nature, the being born on what it is to be born, basically, this is what he said. So he tries to go as like to the very core of everything, maybe. And he does this with the coding. He's interested in finding the patterns that basically go from a fusion of atoms to the civilization. He sees tech as an extension of ourselves, so not as something that is in opposition with us. He likes to also, as part of his research on nature of the nature, he's interested in the eye, and how the multiplicity of the particles that compose us all of a sudden generate this illusory unity, you know, that we are. And then what else? He makes this wonderful claim that I really like, and I always tell even to my therapist that the reality we see is basically a shared hallucination. Nothing new, really, if you think about it. Yeah. But it's brilliant that he says we don't see things as they are, but as we are.
Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. There's something. I mean, 4 minutes, densely packed with visuals, audio, and the things that he's been saying, and there's a lot of things that you already connected to. I mean, this being born, creating, giving birth. A couple of scenes that were in this video are GAN, like this generative adversarial neural network, and they are marvelous little creatures. Well, not that little, because they give birth to some structure from randomness. That's the whole idea of this so-called latent space. What he is exploring in a dream are latent spaces. And latent spaces, I mean, you can talk about this as mathematics, just n-dimensional vectors. And what the GAN does is it takes an arbitrary n-dimensional vector, z, and turns it into a picture. Like most of the time, it's about pictures. So you just grab something that is actually not existing, some noise from somewhere, and it shows you, well, this is a piece of, this is flower bed, and this is a face, and this is a hillside, and those many things that come to mind. What is also beautiful about this approach is that you can go back in the latent space. With a technology that you like, stochastic gradient descent, you can give it a picture, and it will find a vector. And then you can change the vector slightly and change the picture slightly. For example, my face, and you can tilt it by just changing those numbers. And what a lot of these artists do is actually, and I have to come back to this, is latent space exploration, to finding what exists in this space that actually no one has explored yet, to find things in between and even things that you haven't seen before.
Can you give us like a small definition of latent space? How would you find that?
It's hidden. That's the name. It's occult. It's hidden. Okay. Well, it comes from. Well, let's talk a little bit about technology. There are approaches, for example, the variational autoencoder, which takes an image and quote unquote compresses it to just a few numbers, and then decompresses the exact same image out of it. And this allows you to just have a handful of numbers representing an entire image. And those, they are hidden because they are neither input nor output. That's why they call them latent.
So they're latent, but because they're in between, right?
Yeah, in the middle.
Enters and what comes out.
In the middle, and you can use them to control things. You know, I'm just so amazed by everything that's possible with just music and deep neural networks. And there's a music VAE, exactly the same thing. You have a piece of music and you get some latent representation out of it. And then you can reconstruct the same music from this, and you can do math in the latent space. There's a couple of numbers that you can add and it changes the scale. A couple of numbers you add is just roughly the same piece of music, and you have more notes in it or less notes. Or you can go from one piece of music to the other and find all the pieces of music that are in between. Just fascinating to do these things. And with guns, it's a little bit more complicated because, well, coming from a picture and then finding this hidden vector and then doing math is a little bit more expensive. But whoa, boy, things that you can do with that.
In terms of the energy that you need to use?
Because you don't have an encoder, just a decoder, so you have to do a little magic. It takes a couple of moments to find the numbers representing your face, where with a variation autoencoder you get this immediately. And the beauty about these approaches, when you train on numbers, you do the whole exercise with numbers, you find like different renditions of the number 1, different renditions of number 9, but you also see things that are between 7 and 1. Not the numbers that we know that are in between, but how they look like visually, slowly tilting towards.
We did this in class, right?
Yeah. Yes, we did this. So I sometimes do this in class as a bonus at the end of computer vision class in representation learning.
We did this, yeah.
So
do you wanna? So you're an artist too, right? You're we're like a wizard of deep learning and an artist, and then you're a meditator. So I'm thinking that the way this video what we watched should have rang many bells to you. So I would. If Memo Acton is trying to find the nature of nature with this, with this art, with this exploration, you as for example, as a composer or as a deep learning expert, like what if you could give me like a couple of sentences, what are you really trying to do with your art, with your work, with your research? Like, how would you call that? Could you express it in a...
Yeah. It's a good question, Antonio. Good question. There is this one thing that distinguishes us from other species on a planet, that we make extensive use of tools. And what the computer offered us is now an almost infinite set of tools. We have explored a handful of those so far in the last, let's say, 100 years. And there are way more. And I'm contributing to this a little, finding out what other tools are available from this infinitely sized set of tools. For music, I mean, there's so many approaches so far. Music has come such a long way. And the possibilities were just amazing. I have this uncle of mine, right? Also highly talented musician. And he was the first. Well, I said, I want to create computer games, uncle. What to do? And he said, here's a book, programming, do this. And then, well, I did that. And then I have to do animations. And then here's a tool, you can do animations with that. And I want to play an instrument, a guitar, and then here's a guitar, I'll play with it. Like I always asked for inspiration, and then I just glued myself to this inspiration and continued with that. And when he grew up in his own like musical life, on his journey, was completely different thing. We had the hardware was very expensive and almost couldn't do anything. And he really got it. Like he was, I think, overjoyed when I told him that I bought Logic Pro, this digital audio workstation, for maybe 200 euros, when similar tools a decade ago costed thousands of euros. Yeah. Now you have the tiny little power. And I realized it last week when I was again a data science retreat teaching, and their computers were actually computing. So we have computers, and they are not really at the limit of what they can do in everyday life, because just browsing the internet is not really a challenge for a computer. Showing PowerPoint presentations, definitely not. Excel gets a little bit closer because occasionally it does a division or multiplication in these things. But when you use your computer to do some deep learning on data sets, and it computes, and is even busy almost all the time spitting out stuff, now it's computing again. So it's one of the tools now at its limit. And what I see on an everyday basis is that it's always just the beginning. I mean, these. I told you the story, but I think it's also nice for the audience. When I trained the heavy metal model last year, I did not expect anything out of it. It was a very quick exercise. I thought, well, I have a month time between projects. Let's try and see. I had this to-do on my to-do list for a couple of months now. Give it a try. And well, just after 2 weeks, I had this neural network trained on 7,000 heavy metal songs and was spitting out guitar, bass, drums, and piano. I was like, okay. Trust did not come immediately, not really. And over the course of quite almost a year, I found out that so much is possible with just this tiny little neural network. When you take what it can do, spitting out the next note, and you can put it on so many different levels of implementation to kind of push it in beyond its own limits. Like one limit is trained on 4 bars of music, always 4 bars, and I tricked it into infinitely generating stuff for my needs, and that's just amazing. So what I like a lot is that, well, there's a computer, which is a tool, which is a platform of a lot of virtual tools, things that are implemented that actually don't really exist. Well, you have to think about, does it really exist or does it not? And it allows you to create more and more. And it's almost spiritual, because at the end of the day, everything that runs on a computer lives in cyberspace. It takes some time to plug it out and then actually showcase it. It's just amazing.
Okay.
So this is something that I'm doing.
Would you say, so you're trying to use and experiment tools and share your knowledge with people about the possibilities of computing, about AI, and well, what is AI?
Do you really want to talk about AI?
We hear a lot, AI. So what is it when you're in your daily practice? What is it? How do you think about it?
Well, artificial intelligence is so much that it's also nothing.
Okay.
It's the term itself is wrong.
Okay.
It is wrong. I mean, we can agree on the artificial side of the thing, but artificial intelligence is highly, I would say, even controversial, because we don't even have a good understanding of what intelligence is. So it's very, very vague.
Okay.
So I'm more and more telling people, like outing myself, that although I did my PhD in artificial intelligence and did a lot of work in the field of AI, what I'm actually doing is deep learning.
Okay. And deep learning is a subset of artificial.
Yeah. Usually it's considered to be a subset of artificial intelligence. Well, there's so many definitions about AI. That is about artificial entities that humans create. Usually human create them. We don't have AI creating AI yet. That maximize some performance measure. Some number, like for example, couple of those numbers of kilometers that an autonomous driving car manages before crashing or before a human intervenes, like those numbers. Deep learning is easier to grasp because, well, it's about artificial neural networks. They are layered architectures with different kinds of layers, usually supervised learning, where you put in data and get some data out, which is, well, the thing that machine learning does. And they are huge data crunchers. And what I usually say is that these approaches, they're very good at statistically identifying patterns in data. Hopefully patterns that you as a human don't see immediately. Most of the time, they are way more capable of crunching way more data than we can do in just a moment of time.
Is that true, though? You know, I've read so So I'm into peak performance, flow science. Especially the kind of people that I follow. This author, Stephen Kotler, like in one of his books explaining how the brain works, he says that it's been counted that about 12 billion bits hit us every second.
Oh, yes.
12 billion. And then out of these 12 billion, we are capable of being consciously aware of just a small fraction, like 2 digits, like a 40, 50, 70, 60, which means that basically our brain, what it does, it filters and throws out probably a lot of information and leaves us to our conscious attention just a little bit. So this is the reason why I'm saying this is that is it true that our brain is not a very powerful machine?
It is a powerful machine.
That I don't know, like gets data in and spits data out, because what am I doing right now? Spitting words out.
Same thing.
Right?
Yeah, but we have to keep something in mind, is that we are on very, very thin ice every time we try to compare the artificial neural networks with the natural neural networks.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, the artificial neural network is just an idea that was inspired by an understanding that people had about what happens in our heads and modeled it with electronics engineering. But it's definitely not the same thing that we have in our heads. You know, this comparison of people wanted to fly. So they built these flying machines. It turned out that imitating nature is not the best thing, because flapping the wing, highly ineffective. So it branched. Now we have the rotors with helicopters, and well, I don't have to tell you how plane works, right?
Although in Dune,
they do.
That's sick, right? Did you see the
ornithopters? Yeah.
Anyway,
I love them. They look like fireflies. Are they called fireflies? They're fireflies, aren't they?
I think so. Yeah. I think it's super beautiful because they imitate nature quite a bit. But it's true that
we kind of abandoned that. And similar thing with deep neural networks. I mean, my music neural networks, they're heavily restricted. I mean, they see a lot of music. I mean, undoubtedly a lot of music. 400,000 MIDI files is my record.
Okay.
But they cannot do anything else. It's just the music. So it doesn't have any clue about visuals, about thoughts, about lyrics, about poetry, about serious and unserious texts and other modalities. It's just notes. But what it does, it works very effective with that data because it's so restricted in that domain. It makes it really, really easy. And we have the trouble because this is multimodality with multiple channels of input, things to process, and that's why. Well, also a reason, because it's so much we cannot consciously process this, or else we become mad, I think. Or maybe it's a human limitation, nobody knows. It turns out that that is completely different approach.
Okay.
I mean, I can do music, I learn music, everyone can learn music to a certain degree. But studying and getting the patterns out of 100 pieces of music is already a good task. Mm-hmm. Going to 1,000 pieces of music, that's maybe a lifetime's work. Going to 10,000, going to 100,000, going to 500,000, and then still with high accuracy getting the patterns out. I guess that's almost impossible for a person.
So what we basically, because I'm thinking that normally when we, I don't know, there was another artist that was looking at last time, Sofia Crespo. So basically, she says she's interested in how. I'll show you.
Go ahead.
Why don't I show you? Because she writes. It's a beautiful little piece. I'll find her. Sofia Crespo. Yes, I'm gonna share this game just to read you a little, like a little thing. So it's nothing crazy. She says Sofia Crespo is an artist working on a huge interest in biology-inspired technologies. one of our main focus is the way organic life uses artificial mechanisms to simulate itself and evolve. This implies that the idea that technologies are a biased product of organic life that created them and not a completely different object. So anyway, if like to retranslate this, organic life is us, right? So we human use artificial mechanisms, artifacts, which really means things made with art. This is what artificial means, to simulate itself. So, and that means that organic life creates biased products that are not separated from who they are. So, so if you think about it, I don't know, you've probably seen like overlooks of roads, right? Highways. Yeah. They look like arteries. They look like
they do.
Right. So in some sense, when we create tools, because deep learning is another tool, right? When you create this tool, to some extent, even if we don't consciously do that, I have the feeling that we somehow exteriorize what we are and how we're made out there. So that doesn't mean that we recreate exactly what's inside. But I don't think that we need that. We don't even need that, because this is not necessarily the optimal way to I don't know, for example, like the way our cardiocirculatory system works. I think that an engineer might find like more effective ways to make pumps, and maybe not. I don't know. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that we take the principles and we exteriorize them out there.
Yeah.
So the principle somehow stays. Not necessarily. It's not a copy. Is this making any sense to you at all?
It does. You're putting your finger on a very special pulse, a very important direction that has to do with existence, and of course also with computer science, where I come from. This whole recursive fractal nature of existence.
Mm-hmm.
Benoit Mandelbrot, perfect example, like someone who saw patterns where no one saw patterns and managed to reconstruct those patterns, and now we have those fractals.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a great moment in time when there was the first printing of a fractal that came out of an old printer, and you see, oh, this is interesting, and you could zoom in, and those were about like crazy numbers, imaginary numbers that almost, well, except if you are in electronics engineering, then you do it all the time, but normal people don't use these numbers. You can use them, and when they converge, you get those beautiful patterns. Arteries, how plants grow, all these patterns that we see. There's this some kind of cabbage, a cauliflower, Romanesco cauliflower. Have you seen that one? It took me, I think I was 25 when I saw that. There's this white cauliflower, which is already very fractal in nature. And there's the green variant, which is a little edgier. And we call it Romanesco Blumenkohl. Amazing thing, because it has a huge degree of self-similarity. And this is an optimization mechanism that nature uses. It's easier.
Yeah, I understand which one.
Yeah, it's easier to create something if it's self-similar, because you just have the same pattern and you multiply it a couple of times. And also, I'm great that you mentioned paths that we as humans create, those arteries. There's a thing called ant colony. Yeah, that one. Look at this.
Yeah.
They're like
a trippy kind of.
Yeah, psychedelic. I mean, there's so many rooms plastered with these posters with fractals, and this is definitely,
it's so beautiful.
Almost everything in nature, and you have to imagine. I come from this. Somewhere in my archive, I have an old picture that I printed when I was at school in 1998, when we had these fractals, and I've changed one line of code, and suddenly it wasn't black and white; it was green. I have it somewhere here. I can find it right now, maybe in a cupboard or somewhere. And I saw this pattern, which is self-similar. And years later, I went to the supermarket and I saw this one. I was glued. Like to the thing, I was like, what's this? It was like suddenly this tiny little thin layer between waking life and dreaming life was torn apart by seeing this, like almost explicit. It's an amazing thing. And you have it everywhere. I mean, flowers, great example. If you zoom in, take a look at the flower itself, you have all those fancy Fibonacci ratios in it, which is math at the end of the day, even very strong math.
It's a simple equation, right? Of fractals. A equal a squared plus b or something like this. It's very
these things. These things. It's you have strange little numbers and you do this operation a couple of times and either it explodes or it doesn't. And then you dot it and then you have this fractal. It's an amazing thing to do this. A very, very straightforward formula, but still opens the doors to so many possibilities. And what is so amazing about those fractals, again, you can zoom in and you see the pattern again. You can zoom out, same pattern, and there's no end to it. There's no end to it. Like, did we talk about this Simpsons? They have so many great intros. At the beginning, there's always this intro scene, and sometimes it changes. They have variants, they have special things, and there's one that I like a lot. Is it zooming in or is it zooming out? I can't remember. Let's say it's zooming out. So Homer Simpson is sitting on a sofa, and you have the camera zooming out, and then you see the house, you see the city, you see the country, you see the planet, you see the solar system, you see the galaxy, you see clusters of galaxies, and you see clusters of galaxies forming atoms, forming molecules, forming cells, forming him again.
I get it, yeah.
Yeah, and this is also so amazing because they show that it's also a circle.
Recurrent.
So maybe we are living in some position of such a circle, but this is a completely different topic. What you also mentioned, coming back, I have to say this about the paths. Do you know a thing called ant colony optimization?
What's that?
Oh, it's great. It's an algorithm, very straightforward. How ants work. They use pheromones, right? So you have a scout ant that goes from A to B, and if there's something, well, I think it goes from A to B and it drops pheromones. And if it finds something, it comes back with something, drops more pheromones. And then you have other ants following the pheromones back and forth. And once they don't find anything, they stop using pheromones, and then this whole pheromone trace goes away.
Okay.
And this is how ants, organize themselves and find the shortest paths. There was a thing, an experiment, I think somewhere in America, where they created a new university, a campus, with lots and lots of area of grass. But they didn't put paths there.
Okay.
Instead, they put for one semester students, and once you had these paths there, because they traced them by walking, they paved them.
Okay.
No planning whatsoever, so they let the great swarm intelligence find the best paths, and then they paved them. Same at my university. At my university, there was the path that everyone went over the grass, down from the Mensa to everything else, and after a few years, they paved that. To make it less dangerous because it went downhill.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So instead of building the space for people, they let people build the space, and then they.
Right. It emerges. And that's the thing. What emerges is always a great question. Also in the thing that I don't like, but I call it artificial intelligence, emergent intelligence. When you just put in a couple of rules. Then you see what happens. There's an Italian guy, I think, Valentino Breitenberg. So, by the name, sounds a little bit Southern Tyrol.
Yeah.
I have to check where it came from.
German.
No doubt. He wrote a great book years ago about the vehicles. He's known for Breitenberg vehicles, die Breitenberg vehicle. And those are like tiny little robots that you build with just a couple of sensors and actuators. You have motors and you have light detectors, and you just put them together in certain combinations without programming anything, and they exhibit complex behavior. Even emoting, they show emotion sometimes. Sometimes they are afraid and run away because they don't want to be in the light. And it's amazing to see when you have multiple of those interacting with different rules and what happens. So you have vehicles chasing other vehicles, like rabbit and foxes and these things, just by tiny little things. And this is what like a lot of computer scientists really like, that you just apply a couple of rules and then you see something very complex emerging out of it.
Well,
game of life.
Yeah, but isn't this how our bodies are built anyways? If you think about atoms and
yes,
like an atom is not a person, two atoms are not a person, but many atoms are. So you put things together, and over time, a hat and a longer hair emerge.
But gets very, very complicated. You know this ephesians paradoxon with a ship?
No, tell me.
Paradoxon, you have a ship. Mm-hmm. No,
I have a ship. No.
Yeah, a ship. I mean, assume that you buy a ship and then over time you replace things of the ship. Mm-hmm. And it might be that over a couple of decades you have replaced everything on a ship. Mm-hmm. Is it still your ship? You have a broom. You have the head and you have the stick out of it. And you change the stick of a head over time. Is it still the broom?
Well, don't I shed cells constantly?
You do.
Don't I shed and acquire atoms constantly? Is it still me? So according to some philosophies, no. You know?
Yeah, but what is you? Imagine that to an accident you lose a hand. You're still you, aren't you?
Yeah, even if I
was the hand you?
Part of me. As long as it was attached.
Attached, right.
Was me, as part of me, was also me. My hand is also me. It's not all of me, but also me. But what about my head? If I lose it, is that still me?
It's a little bit complicated.
That's that things get a little more complicated there. But I don't know, because it's these are points where I honestly bang my head against my therapists, because as I'm studying, as I'm more into spirituality, for example, and I study how this and I meditate and I enter in contact with the world around me. I'm letting more go the idea of me being a self. And I embrace more the idea that I'm connected with everything else, like a cell is connected with other cells, and I'm part of a larger system, which is called the planet, life, the solar system, and everything else. So I'm learning to see myself more like that. But I bang my head against the one, like my therapist, because she says, yeah, but you're an individuum, you are this person, you are. And I say, okay, but I change constantly. I shed cells, I acquire new one. I think within this, I don't know how many months or years it's been counted, that there is not one thing of your body that stays exactly the same.
Nothing.
I think maybe, I don't know if it's 7 months or 7 years. I don't know how long it takes to have a complete change of all the elements that constitute you.
7 years.
7 years, right? Probably 7 years. So is that me? I don't, like, okay, subjectively, yes, of course. Like, I have the experience that this is me. But objectively, I don't know anymore. To be honest, I don't know anymore. And there was a similar, I'll just add a little thing, and then I'll let you talk. Like there was there's this physicist, right, Max Tegmark, who wrote this book about AGI, and sort of like a physicist at MIT. And he says, well, he talks at some point about matter and about freedom. Okay, he says, is matter free? And he says, well, really, if you look at the universe, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to think about freedom. However, this matter that we are subjectively feels free, and he says that's more than enough.
Yep.
We don't need to go out there. So subjectively, I feel myself. But am I really the same person I was a while ago, 2 whiles ago, a year ago, 7 years? I don't know.
I don't think
what,
so.
What do you, yeah. Like, what do you think?
It's all flowing. I mean, all those spiritual, like a couple of those, maybe all, I don't think all, but quite a few of those spiritual schools that point in certain directions that are not really 100% matching the materialistic point of view that we grew up. There are also quite a lot of things in those, well, in religions and also in spirituality where you have to be extremely careful. For example, I read a book, I think it was written in Weimar Republic, about induziertes Irrsein, translated induced madness. If you meditate too often using the wrong tools, you turn yourself into a non-judgmental automaton.
Okay.
So you're cutting away too much from yourself. So too much of that stuff. I mean, it's this de-attaching. It's not mine. It's yours. De-identifying. So not my monkey, not my circus, not my monkeys, and all these things. And then you let go so many things, and at the end of the day, you're just empty. Well, some people say it's good. Some people say, well, don't. For example, well, mindful meditation is mindless meditation. Most of the time, it's
wow. Okay.
I mean, you try to empty yourself. Let go of consciousness. Don't do that. Do mindful meditation. But in our well, this is so great that I mean we talked about a lot of things that have to do with technology, also some things that have to do with the human condition, and also those never-ending questions that we have all the time. Humans, they are asking all the time, and they're answering questions, and only to come up with new questions that need some answering. And this AI thing, it points in so many directions. And I think maybe we talked about this. So we have a huge background of science fiction. And I love science fiction because most of the part that is written doesn't become reality. And a tiny little portion of science fiction turns into reality. And we see this happening right now with the internet. It happened, and all this communication, and also the thing that we call artificial intelligence, which is now exploding, definitely exploding, and in our lifetimes. I think we talked about this in Berlin recently, that it's just amazing how much progress you can now see. That I think this tiny little device here for controlling the mouse pointer has way more computing power than I think my first computer that I had.
Wow. Yeah.
I'm not old.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about those 80-year-old people who have a computer, a Mac at home, but worked with the old computers.
Yeah,
huge
I mean,
difference.
even phones are million times, modern phones are million times more powerful than the machinery that we used to send people to the moon.
Today I read a paper. I read a couple of papers, I think 11 papers, because I have a certain project that I'm contributing to. And it was about traffic optimization.
Okay.
And there was a paper that optimized traffic, so street lights, so red, green, something, to control the traffic in a city. And the paper that I read was about deep reinforcement learning, and it was about controlling how many, I think 5 intersections in a city. So 10 years later, 2020, another paper, and this is about 1,000 intersections.
Wow.
Which translates to, well, this is a good sized city. You can do this right now. Same approach, but scaled. Same with the music. Last year I started with 7,000, this year 400,000.
So what's next step? 1 million? No, would be too small, because you 7,000 to 400,000. You grew like 2 orders of magnitude, right?
Yeah,
You should grow like 4.
The question is how much you actually need. How much do you need? If you want to be very, very good generating music in one genre, let's say heavy metal only, 7,000 songs is enough. You will keep you busy ad infinitum using those neural networks composing music. If you want to have something that is way more general, you need way more data. And well, I'm quite happy that I trained on 400,000, and I'm now in a position where I think, well, now it's a certain bottleneck because we have to get more data, and we don't have that much more data encoded. I mean, so many songs are available, but they have to be encoded. They have to be in symbolic AI for the things that I'm doing. And I think
can't you play around with the data and I don't know, like augment it somehow?
I do to a certain degree. If my data sets are very small, I do data augmentation by transposing. Upper prime, downer prime, and quint, fifth, sixth, and so on. Go up a couple of half notes and go down a couple of half notes, and then it also works. But for the big data sets, you actually don't have to do that. But it's, you're quickly at the limit, so it's ideal to get more and more input. And I'm waiting, and it's around the corner that you have those tools that can do a highly accurate transcription of any WAV file or MP3 file that you have. So throwing everything that lives in Spotify into the preprocessor and then training on that. That would be something really nice. But still something is missing, that the human interaction part is missing, because it's still on a symbolic level. And I mean, you have seen DALL-E, haven't you? And what about having DALL-E for music? And I've been pregnant with that idea for a couple of weeks now. This actually months. It's missing that you can come. I think for maybe half a year thinking about that, because I saw that how much GPT-3 can do, because it's just been trained on text. And we have seen if DALL-E, and I think DALL-E, it has GPT-3 in it, hasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, for the encoding part. Wait, DALL-E is GPT-2. Well, it's a transformer.
Yeah,
it's a decoder only transformer, which is trained on text and on pictures.
Yeah.
And what about getting something that's a little bit more multimodal? What about training it on pictures and also on music and on text for generative purposes? And it would be something really, really nice. I mean, what I'm doing in my composition, I have a dialogue, but the dialogue is very bottlenecked. It's when you talk to a person. Have you seen Breaking Bad?
Don't tell anyone. No.
I haven't.
Tell anyone. No. Every
problem.
time I talk to someone about this thing, they always want to.
I tell you, there's a gangster doing, because of some circumstances, he's now bound to the wheelchair and is unfortunate. Well, he's a gangster at the end of the day. Has a lot of impediments, and the only way for him to communicate is ringing a bell. Right? And you can communicate if you have an alphabet, and every time there's the right character, you hit the bell, and you can spell things out with that. And yes, no questions. But it's very, very bottlenecked. And this form of communication, and my form of communication with my AI to compose music is also very bottlenecked. I sometimes would like to say something in just a few words. Maybe you do this and repeat this pattern, and then you go press play on tape and then generate something like that. I still have to push buttons in order to get something out, and I'm quite silent. And while we have music language in natural language in order to express a couple of things, in order to communicate with other musicians, and still with my music AIs, and it's true for quite a lot of people, you still have to push buttons instead of using natural language. So I'm thinking more and more about that actually maybe someone should do this. Maybe I will do this with a couple of people. That maybe people are already working on that you get a music model that you can condition in a generation on natural language.
I wouldn't be surprised if OpenAI in a couple of months will come out with something like this, because it doesn't make any sense not.
It's probable. It's very probable. They did Jukebox. They even had. Did they have the music transformer? So they've trained on. I think they have trained on a lot of MIDI files, and they've also trained on a lot of WAV files. And now they did DALL-E, and they've trained on text, and they mixed text and pictures for DALL-E. I think, well, music is just around the corner, and then they charge for it again.
So let me ask you something that everybody always asks. Like I hear a lot of bullshit about this, but anyway, about AI taking over, wiping us from the face of Earth, which would not be necessarily bad given what we do to this planet. But what's your take? How do you see? Like, I guess what I'm trying to ask is like, if you were to project, say, the next 30, 50 years. Okay, 50 years. You're well aware of how quickly this is going, right?
Yeah,
so what is happening to us in 50 years, and so what is happening to us? What is happening to the machines? And what is happening to this symbiosis that we have already developed with machines? We always had it, because we always been coexisting with our instruments.
Yeah.
So how do you, what do you see?
I have a certain hope. My hope is that mankind is slowly but surely getting its act together.
Okay.
I mean, if you just take a brief look at the last 100 years of history, maybe 200 years of history, and well, what has been before that, a couple of things improved. Still, it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, right?
So dance.
Yeah, it's like this. Like we had like Germany, Germany and the wars.
Germany?
Don't mention the war.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Don't get me started about the Italians' role back then. Well, still, but this
We
piece
were
of the
not
puzzle-
there. We were
No.
just following you, right?
No,
We
it
just
was someone else.
We happened to be like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but what we've learned so far is that maybe doing world wars is not a really, really good thing. That's why we are now so scared, because we still remember the 2 big wars, and every time something starts, we are afraid that the whole world is going down the drain again. But still, well, we have a lot of wars. We had a lot of wars, but I think the number of people dying in wars is going down significantly. Sometimes goes up, sometimes goes down, but still. And also on the other hand side, this that it took mankind some time to realize that we are actually a planetary force, in a sense that we can change the environment significantly. So there's this understanding that there's this man-made or man contributes to climate change, but also at the same time we have so many areas in the world that would be deserts without us, because we tend to green everything. When I was at school, we discussed at length what happened at the Nile River, where you just have the Nile and everything else is desert, but it got greener and greener because of the water transportation systems that the ancient Egyptians came up with. And we put water everywhere to grow crops and on all these fancy things. So we are contributing positively, but also negatively. But we are well aware of that. And I have seen in my lifetime that we actually conquered a couple of the problems that we have caused and repaired them to a certain degree. There was this thing with the holes in the ozone layer. Right, when we had these strange gases, FCKWs, how we called them, which were back then everywhere in the spray cans and also in the refrigerators. And it turned out that, well, if you put them in the atmosphere, we get those holes in the ozone layer. And at the same time, we also found out that this ozone layer hole is a seasonal thing that happens all the time, but we contributed and made it bigger. And I think we kind of reduced that effect. Also, sour rain. When I was a kid, we had acid rain, and the forest died.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and we kind of overcame these things, but it's getting complicated because we're scaling up to a global society. And usually, well, now comes the computer scientists out, is that if you are aware of a problem, the problem is almost solved. A problem that you are aware of is way more valuable than some problem that lingers in the dark and you don't see it. And there's also the downside, and that's also what you are asking, that we are capable of projecting out potential problems. Like, I mean, you can keep yourself busy talking about your own problems from the past and possible problems that you're going to get in the future, ignoring the present totally. I mean, that's what we humans do, right? We are burdened with this brain that can remember and project into the future. And so many people that keep themselves busy thinking about problems in the past, projecting out into the future. And then it's like here in Germany, where we're expecting yet another pandemic of something else, and now we are thinking about doing something else. It's very crazy these days. And the way I see it is coming back that we might be at a threshold of getting our act together, and I hope that technology is going to help us scale, because that's the thing that we are not so good at, scaling. We have now this global community, and you cannot think about nation states anymore because it's all connected now. Coming back, right, all's connected. It's not that you have islands of civilizations, occasionally you write a postcard. Now it's connected. We introduced the internet and things got really, really crazy, especially in the last 2 decades, I think. So we learned a lot about interacting with people all over the world. And now it's all a village. Everything is fairly close. We learned a lot from that, and we changed, definitely. And I hope we changed to a huge degree to the better. Well, at the same time, it's this information burden that you know so much. You get so much information on an everyday basis that you see it's all wrong because, the news, they don't report on the good stuff anymore. Well, they never did. So it's also a little bit difficult because there's this filter running that you see the negative things. So long story short, I think although it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, on average it's still 1 step forward all the time. It's getting better. And I think that technology is definitely going to contribute to this a lot without eradicating mankind, because AI thinks it's the best solution.
Okay. But how do you see your practice as a composer, for example, in 10 years? Because now you say that you have you trained 400,000 songs, and there is still like a problem of like a bottleneck when it comes to interacting with your models. In 10 years time, or give me like in 10 years time, in 20 years time, what will you be doing with your models? Assuming you don't get bored and do something else. I mean,
so I think it's highly probable that what I'm doing is going to get multimedia, because I'm still waiting for something that I can use to create music videos with a comparable effort.
Yeah.
You know, my effort with my AI is not very easy because I invested all the effort in doing the whole data pipelining and training neural networks, but now it's just clicking a button and get something. I also would like to see it on different levels, music videos. One thing that we already discussed is this verbal interaction, that I can talk to the AI, and also way more efficient tools, and also, and this is not so many years down the road, this whole thing that I have musical material and I can give this to the AI as an inspiration, and then it composes something similar to that or different from that. Like, I would love, like, someone did this already, Metallica in bluegrass style with a banjo, right?
Oh my God.
People did this on the internet without AI. But what I would like to do is, here is a piece of music, let's say Metallica's Enter Sandman, and I ask the AI, please render this in the style of Megadeth with the voice of Dave Mustaine, who is the singer and guitarist of Megadeth. And I would press play and tape and we'll get something out of that.
But it's not too crazy to imagine, right? Like, this is very, like, I don't...
No. This is a matter of sequence length.
Yeah, it's not...
When talking about transformers,
not something that's obscene to imagine, right? This could happen in like 5 years or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
5?
And also human machine interaction via those fancy interfaces that are now around the corner, right? I mean, a trackball and a keyboard, still a bottleneck. What about getting the implants that Elon Musk is developing?
Yeah.
You get a full head prosthesis of something that connects you to the internet. That would be a crazy thing. I'm not asking for it right now. I would like to see the studies first.
But you will get it. Would you? Would you get it?
If it's safe.
You knew that it worked?
If a long-term studies are in, and my brain is not too old for that,
you would do it. Okay.
Long-term studies, right?
These are not, yeah, long-term. So you would, if you did it, you would do it in like 15 years, maybe then.
Let's see. To the best of my knowledge, those poor little monkeys are still suffering from Neuralink.
Yeah, I heard about this.
Scaling problem.
And I wonder whether if this is the way these things are being done. I'm wondering whether, for example, this way of invading your brain is the like physically is the only way by which we can go, because I at some point I researched a little bit about brain machine interfaces, and there are also other tools that are being developed that you like place them on your neck, on your shoulder or something like that. You don't need to drill your head.
Yep.
Because many times that I hear conversation like in non-expert, like a lay, more like lay people kind of conversation. People seem to be freaked out by, having their skulls drilled. I mean, we already do
rather
that.
brute force, yeah.
So so anyway, yeah, we'll see. But the problem of how would you call it? It's a problem of latency, right? The fact that there is like slow interaction between us and the machine. But there is also another term for it. What is it? It's not latency. It's the width of information that we not remember.
Bandwidth.
Bandwidth. There you go.
Yeah, it's a bandwidth problem. This tiny little Neuralink is almost nothing. That's why they want like have a full body.
Yeah, they need to
full head thing. But well, another thing where I have certain hopes that they might change. It's beyond. Did I have more time to do those creative works? Is a certain chance. We talked about this old picture of the Greek philosophers who projected out into the future that once we have mastered automation in agriculture, that we'll have a lot of time to write poetry and, well, do party hard.
Inshallah.
Yeah, it's still not there yet. Although we automated a lot, we're still working for 40 hours in a corporate job, right, to get money, and then we still work more hours in order to optimize someone else's salary. But it's a strange world to live in. And I have this hope that we have a chance by automating more of these things that more and more people have actually time to create culture on an maybe advanced is the wrong word, but I think you know what I mean. When you this picture of Garry Kasparov in the Centaur League, when he played with a computer against a human with a computer, chess matches that never existed and that never would have happened between two humans or two computers only, right? That you get this, that you have AI augmented human productivity and creativity, especially for culture. And I would like to see something coming out of that in the near future, so that we build new kinds of cathedrals when the 3D printer is just taken out to print all these things, and we can design with quite a lot of detail using fractal AI to those neo-Gothic architectures with the neon lights and so many things that we can do. So I hope that we're going to see a huge increase in human creativity, especially amongst people that usually are not inclined towards creativity.
And would you? Well, the thing is that the way I see creativity is that the more you engage with it, at least, okay, how about I talk about myself? But I don't think I'm that different from anybody else. So, because the more I engage with creativity under the form of, writing for me, or, even coding, or working out, but then I like do photos. I engage with creativity in like a number of ways. But what I notice is that over time, my awareness, my consciousness has grown. I've become
Yes.
more connected to the rest, and to the rest, I mean with myself, with people, with objects, with nature, with my dog. My relationship with my dog has improved. And so if neural nets in this case are ways to augment our creativity, can we say that maybe like over time our consciousness, our awareness, also thanks to the help of the machine, will expand in scope and scale? Are we going to become more whole, more wholesome, more in touch, more I don't know. Do you think that the humanity overall is going to also, with the help of machines, become more I don't know, in balance, in equilibrium? Is this wishful thinking? Is it something that can be extrapolated instead? Like, what do you?
That would be nice. That would be nice. There's this. Is it a puffer fish? There's this fish, this tiny little fish, and in order to impress a female potential partner, it creates reliefs on the ocean floor in a very high detail. It's drawing mandalas.
Mm-hmm.
This tiny little fish is drawing mandalas and moving stones around only to impress a female, right? And putting something that is adding order on something that is usually very, very chaotic, doing this just for the purpose of impressing someone. And what I would love to see is, I mean, this explosion of creativity, maybe to impress someone, I don't know, but well, creativity to be creative, and those tools are getting better, right? And we don't have to forget that it's also about integrating tools. I mean, this 3D printing is a thing that is happening now in parallel to AI, and has been happening now for quite a lot of years, where now it is easier to have an idea and manifest it in a physical plane. Well, and the only thing that you have to do is 3D modeling and print it, right? Which still bottleneck. Still have to do the 3D modeling. What about you having some tools when you can come up with high detail with a low, like I say, a low obstacle? It's easy to use tools to come up with these tiny little things with those models, and you have them printed. What about making the whole thing easier for a human, so that you don't have to learn 3D modeling first, that you can use a tool almost intuitively, where you can turn your thoughts into a picture and then into a form out of a 3D printer? What about you get out of a bottleneck, that you have a certain idea and another idea, and you can turn this easily into a musical idea that manifests in your digital audio workstation 10 years down the road with the use of AI? That would be nice.
So that you basically reduce, because now, for example, to produce music, you need to study and know the instrument a
Not
bit.
anymore. No.
Not anymore.
No, this has been gone. It has been gone. I have a certain share of experiences with hip hop music. Fairly easy.
Okay.
No. That's wrong. I shouldn't say that. It's not fairly easy, but it is. There are shortcuts that you can use that make a life very, very easy. Well, in some, well, Metallica. I think the guys from Metallica, they cannot read sheet music. They cannot read sheet music. I think they cannot. It's always good to have a certain background in music theory. Really helps you, expands your horizon, but exposing yourself to music already does a fair trick. And then after a couple of years being exposed to music, you know what sounds good, you know what sounds bad. You get this feeling when something is bad, which is, well, you know, but Yeah, right. Rhythm is off, and maybe something, and just get a feeling about something. So you get this feeling, but you cannot really put it in words to say, well, this maybe there's a note that is one half note too high. But still, if you have those tools where you can just follow your intuition of what sounds good, you can create beautiful things already right now. It's getting easier as you speak.
So, okay, can I ask you like a non-related question?
Go ahead.
So, what are your favorite sci-fi point of references? Like books, give me books, give me, I don't know, give me anime, give me films.
Okay.
How do you, like, let's delve into the nerdy,
the
Tristan.
nerdy.
Yeah. Because I'm really curious, like what do you like the most? What has shaped you the most, actually?
Shaped? Ooh. Science fiction that shaped me the most is definitely Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Star Trek: Next Generation. Okay, I
have to. Well,
one movie. I still have to watch it from Star.
Well, the thing is, I care that you understand that I mean Star Trek. No, it's Star Trek: The Next Generation, right?
Okay.
Not Captain Picard.
I have to write this down.
Captain Picard is very, very important because there's so many things that are available. So it's definitely from this utopian point of view. Like, what could happen if you try to get your act together? And the whole story about Star Trek, especially about Star Trek: Next Generation, is mankind getting their act together.
Oh, okay.
And well, even in this newest, they went now full circle just a few weeks ago with Star Trek Picard, where they continued the storylines that they started in the 80s. So this is definitely something highly significant. So everyone who is into AI and what might happen, all of these problems that we are talking about, well, is AI alive? And these things, they asked and answered those questions in the,
in the
80s. Yeah, right.
Okay.
And they have this Android. And the Android delves in like how to integrate with humans. And boy, he integrated with humans. Computational creativity, he's composing things, and he is sad, but he doesn't have emotions, but sometimes it emerges, because he said, well, I just took the playing style on the violin of these 4 performers and I mixed them. And so I have not been really creative. I have no style. They say, well, obviously you do have. I'm discussing with him and giving him legal status that he's actually a being that lives, because you cannot tell that humans have souls, right? So definitely a thing. When it comes to expanding your mind and messianic figures, it's definitely Dune. Desert Planet, highly significant. Especially how they dealt with AI.
Have you read the book?
Yes, a couple of times.
Is it beautiful?
Yeah.
Because I'm reading the book right now, and within the book, the author of the book, like the main character of the book, who's an animalist, like a weird character, he carries around a copy of Dune, and he reads it every now and again. And so during the novel that I'm reading right now, it's called The Last Tango in Cyberspace. He quotes Dune, and as I was reading it, I was like, I really want to read this book right now. So is it a good book to read?
Definitely. So I read it a couple of times, and it's on my eternal audiobooks list.
Okay.
And well, David Lynch movie, excellent, and the newest, Villeneuve movie, awesome.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Highly significant. Do you remember how they dealt with AI?
Do you remember how many times you watched it? The movie? I watched it twice.
Can't remember. The newest one?
Yeah. Yes.
Dozens of times, I guess.
Really? Oh wow. Okay.
Good one. I mean, the week we met, I watched it 3 times, I think.
Yeah, I think you told me that. Yeah, I think you told me. No, I watched it.
I'm getting in the mood of watching it again. Still, Still, I have to ask you, what about the AI in that movie?
I barely see it. Where
There's
is
none.
exactly? I
There's a
don't.
reason. It's forbidden.
There is a no. There is a well. There is a point in which you have seems like AI, but I'm not sure it is.
Don't.
And it's when at the very beginning they have to go to Arrakis, and they're studying the Fremen, and Muad'Dib basically is learning about the Fremen.
Yep.
And I thought that over there was AI. Like, you know, there is this scene where there is being projecting, there are images projecting like three-dimensional images, like holograms, basically. Yeah, do you remember?
Augmented reality.
Yeah, okay. And so I thought it was AI there, but I don't.
No.
Otherwise, it's nowhere. So
No.
what happened?
This whole movie takes place in the year 10,191,
Okay.
and it's not Anno Domini. I think actually it is 12,000 years after the birth of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
Okay.
And in the backstory of this whole universe, they have a thing called the Butlerian Jihad. And the Butlerian Jihad was an uprising of the robots.
Okay.
Of thinking machines. And now thinking machines are outlawed. That's why they have the mentats. Mentats are human thinking machines. So they're human computers. That's how they call them. How is it called? I forgot. How's it called by the this Atreides has one. How is it called? They have a mentat. You know, the one who turns white-eyed when he does the computations.
But is it the doctor?
No, the other one. Tufir Hawat.
Okay.
Hawat, the old guy.
Okay.
Has been their House Atreides computer for 3 generations. And the mentats are humans bred to do computations. They ask him, how much does it cost? And he turns up the eyes, turns back, and then there you go. Peiter de Vries is the mentat by in a service of House Harkonnen. The bold guy who goes buying the Sardaukar. He's also a mentat. And well, the thing is, with Paul Atreides is that he is a crossbreed of mentats and Bene Gesserit.
Yeah.
Because it's an alternative, right? It's an alternative, like they're more female politicians and spiritual journey and all these things. Yeah, it's mixed. And that's why people believe he is the Kwisatz Haderach. But as we see in the next novel, he isn't.
What? What do you mean he isn't?
Well, maybe he's the Kwisatz Haderach, but he's not the Messiah.
Okay.
Because he brings the jihad and billions of people die. That's his trouble.
Because I watched 3 or 4 times the first Dune that was done. And even there, it's not very clear what happens. Like there is an awakening there.
Yeah, he does.
Enlightenment, because
he awakens multiple times. Yeah.
But you don't know what happens later. Basically, in the movie,
Yeah.
they don't let you see that.
There are way more books.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he goes into the desert and gets blinded by an atomic explosion, becomes something like a prophet, while his children are dealing with politics and reigning.
Oh, so it's a series of books?
Yes. Over a couple of millennia. It ends, I think there's even the God Emperor with his either son or grandson, I can't remember, that merges with the sand trout and becomes a giant human half-breed of like human sandworm that goes on living for millennia.
I didn't know about this.
Gets really haywire at the end, yeah.
Okay. So this Star Trek, then what else do you have?
I mean, for entertainment, everything that has to do with aliens. I mean, Alien Trilogy, for example, just for entertainment, not for significance, because, okay, you have a little significance in it with those androids. I think we talked about this at length. Blade Runner, definitely significant. Ghost in the Shell. Well, those anime movies, I think the first 2 are quite good. A couple of those anime series are not that good. I think I have 1 or 2 mangas here. The movie with Scarlett Johansson, although people say it's not that good, I like it.
The movie Scarlett Johansson. What's the name though?
Ghost in the Shell.
Oh, Ghost in. I think I watched it, but yeah, I think I watched it. Came out about 5-6 years ago, right? Something like this. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's very trippy. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't have a. So there is a lot of silence. You don't really know what happens sometimes. I couldn't really understand the movie when I watched it. Okay.
Well, the thing is that Theseus paradox. What remains when you? I think they had extracted her brain and put it into cyborg body. I think that's the whole plot point.
Okay.
Whole plot point. She's still human, but it's only the brain. Everything else is a robot.
Okay.
Major.
So let me ask you something else now. So
Go.
So you are also a yoga teacher, right? So how do you integrate? Do you see yourself as integrating these various characters of yours? Because I see an integration between the programmer and the music composer, because now the music composer uses programming, so they're pretty much one thing. But in this, where is the do you configure yourself in a way that you see a perfect integration also with the yoga teacher, or there is or he lives next to the coder and the?
I would say it's overlapping.
Okay.
Because there's yoga and yoga. I mean, yoga in the public eye is asana, people doing aerobics, right? And but yoga has way more layers, and quite a lot of layers about asking questions and trying to getting some answers that are not on a physical level. And for me, the whole journey, including yoga, is about asking questions and getting some answers. Like AI is asking questions.
Yogi is a philosopher.
Yeah.
A yogi is a philosopher? Is this what you would say? Because philosophers, that's what they do. Ask questions.
Well, it depends on how deep you go with yoga. Because still you have this beautiful bodies yoga that doesn't go very, very deep. But still, some people would say that the yoga journey is a journey towards some kind of awakening or even enlightening. And they say there are so many paths. There are yogis who like sing all day without moving. They're a little bit pot-bellied because they don't exercise, but they sing and they're happy and get some spiritual significance out of it. And there are other yogis, and they are documented, who take drugs. Herbs, as they called that in literature. I don't never tried that. And also if you I don't do this that often. I think I'm going to do it next time in July when I go on a retreat with Dominica. Is physical exhaustion also is quite interesting because it answers a couple of questions, right?
Physical exhaustion?
Yeah. We have a certain interest in a very, very strong asana practice, which is very, very exhausting.
Okay.
And it shows you, it's like, sometimes you get this feeling of hunger where you also get a little sick in the tummy. You know that? You can have it three times in extensive yoga practice with it coming and it going away, and still your body finds some energy somewhere and gets it out.
I talk to people that go on retreats and they don't eat for 1 week, 2 weeks.
It's okay.
It's just normal. The first couple of days are complicated, but for example, when your body finds magnificent ways to adjust to exertion. Of course, you cannot do this forever, but you can actually push yourself way beyond what you think you can.
Yeah, but don't get me wrong. For me, I have my strong everyday practice of mindful meditation, not the mindless meditation, and I would say a rather shallow asana practice. Like every day, I try to at least do my few sun salutations and a little more, which is already quite enough.
Okay, so there are overlaps. I see.
Yes.
So somebody explained to me, for example, with yoga, that there are like 7 steps, 6 steps. So basically, a part that you learn how to eat, part you learn to be fit, a part in which you learn to let me think, to do meditation, but to like be open, and then you learn to focus, and then you learn to focus on one thing, and then you reach enlightenment. Like there is a scale of levels. Is this ringing any bell or?
Yeah. It's it depends on the schools, but there seems to be a certain consensus amongst many schools that the whole plan or the whole idea is that you can sit in meditation for extended periods of time. And in order to be able to sit in meditation for extended periods of time, you have to keep your body fit.
True, because
or else it doesn't work. And this is where the whole pyramid starts, right? Good food, good posture, and all these fancy things that really contribute to that goal.
Okay. Are all yogis vegan?
No, definitely not.
Oh no? So it's not a
no, there's even a spiritual practice where you indulge in everything that's forbidden.
For real?
Like drinking milk, eating.
So in Berlin, people are all enlightened yogis then.
It's a way to enlightenment that you overindulge. Also, people do that, but I don't. I decided to go vegan, and here I am. It's quite fine, but it's not really a stereotype. And again, this whole asana is just the outmost layer that you usually see. And for many people, this is how it begins and how it ends, actually.
Okay. Well, I mean, learning to use your body is not bad.
Yeah,
because today we have completely forgotten to do that.
Yeah, we
which
should
is basically this is one of the very few things that I'm really sad about our evolution. But I think it's momentarily. I think it's something that has to do with it's just a phase.
Yeah.
But the thing is that, if you think about it, we used to live on trees, which means that we used to like fly from a branch to another, like move freely.
It has been ages ago.
How many? 20,000 years. So 12,000 years is agriculture. So we came down from trees maybe 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Not that long.
Well, we have a recorded history that is 12,000 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a species history, genetics, that is between 100,000 and 1 million years of Homo sapiens.
Is it? Because I thought the Homo sapiens was 200,000, and then hominids.
No, it's 100,000 to 1 million.
Okay.
I'm not sure about these things, but well, there's a piece of history missing for Homo sapiens, right? And then before that, there's an aquatic ape theory. That's why we are the only primates who are so good in water. Have you heard about that?
No, I know that if you go back, water is where everything and everyone comes from.
There's a reflex when you put your head into a bucket of water, mm-hmm. Your pulse goes down and blood pressure goes down.
Mm.
The other big apes, they don't have that.
Okay.
What if you take kids don't do this at home? Let's take a newborn chimpanzee and take a newborn human child and you throw them in a swimming pool. What happens?
Probably the child will swim. Probably.
Yeah, will hold its breath, and the chimpanzee
die.
Goes to the ground immediately. But it's completely different stories. There are people who believe that we are quite fond of water and has to do because we spend quite some time closer in the water.
Okay. But anyway, like just to circle back, I think if you do practices that allow you to learn to move your body well enough. Yeah, I understand your point that if this is the only thing you do, it becomes quite shallow. But it's still better than the average, I'd say, because we very rarely do we know what to do with our bodies lately.
Yeah.
I think this is something that we really need to learn how to rethink. A friend of mine who's a sports scientist, he talked about Italy, and so I don't know about the rest of Europe, but basically he says that the extrapolations that they've done when it comes to our expectation of life, says in Italy, given the very poor shape and of younger generations who are always sitting down and so on and so forth, he says that younger generation today are expected to live less than their parents, which is quite scary if you think about it, because it's always been the other way around, right?
Yes.
But it says that for the poor, since Italy is very backward when it comes to physical education, it's not well implemented in school. I did maybe 2 hours a week, and sometimes out of these 2 hours a week, 1 hour was theory. We were sitting down writing, and 1 hour a week was practice. It's crazy, right? So he says that, and he's desperate. This guy's desperate. He says, it's insane. Like 12, 15 years old kids today might actually live less than their parents if they don't find a way to, move more, things like this.
Oh, yes.
So I believe that yoga in this regard could help people big time.
Yeah, you have to keep moving for everything. I mean, I'm even so neurotic. I have this Excel. It's the only I have a few Excel sheets. Although I'm bashing Microsoft Office and everything Microsoft has done on a regular basis, I do have an Excel sheet that for me to keeping track of the daily steps.
Oh yeah, okay. Okay, how many do you do? How many do you make?
Well, it's 10,000 per day.
Yeah.
And I have a quarterly goal, and I think this quarter I'm going to reach it very soon. We're still having 1 month left. I've been very active the last month.
Okay, but so you take long walks? Is this how you keep? Do you take long walks? Is this what you do? Okay.
Yeah.
I
try to make my life consciously a little bit more difficult. So I had a plan. I had a plan. 2 things. I wanted to buy some bread. I wanted to bring a package to the post office. So I decided to go in that direction in the village because there's this box for the post thingies, and then decided to go to the other side of the village in order to get the bread.
Okay, so you don't have like a workout routine, I don't know,
the absolute minimum that everyone should do is walk a lot. And people say 10,000, maybe 15,000. And I also have the routine of doing my sun salutations and doing light physical exercises.
Okay. And are you teaching yoga?
Not anymore. I stopped teaching yoga when I was still in Berlin.
Okay. Wow. So what's next when it comes to like your newest project? So what's can you give us?
Well, I'm working on a couple of things that I'm not yet in a position to reveal.
Okay.
But a couple of things that I can say. Well, a thing that I can say is that I'm currently in a mood of going more out to the public with the AI and music that I've done. So I'm currently working on the 4th Hexagon Machine album.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I always I have this goal of creating 12 songs, and I think there are 2 more songs which I have to start. A couple of songs are already done. A couple of songs still have a couple of tokens on the to-do list that I have to work with, so it's getting there. And it's for me very interesting because now it has also lyrics. So I use GPT-3 to compose lyrics, which will cost me a couple of euros per month. Still fine. Also, I'm always thinking more about these art exhibitions where I would combine the music with some visuals in order to make the experience more tangible to a wider public. Because I think this is very, very important, that in order for people to understand AI, it has to be something that you can touch to a certain degree, that you can experience, that's tangible.
You have to incarnate it, right?
Yes. You have to give it to people. And recently, when I published this Hugging Face space with just this tiny little composer where you can click and you get 4 bars of music, people love this.
Because
people love
it's
this.
tangible. Okay.
Yeah. Like you have it in your cell phone, right? It works in your cell phone.
Okay.
And I think it even creates a WAV file that you can save and send to your people. And how cool is that? You just push a button and then you have some music composed by AI.
So that's the next step, right? To somehow show that this abstract concept of AI actually can
right.
shift into...
It's continuing the journey. So I've been quite silent about AI music up until I think March, comparatively silent. March last year when the whole thing just exploded. And now I'm just, every time I find something, I tell people, and enabling people to do that. We both come from data science retreat, and I'm always curious about those people who want to do something with AI and music or AI and creativity, and I enable them. Yeah, enabling people. It's a great thing to do.
Okay. All right. Nice.
Great.
This was fun. Love it.
Very inspiring, Antonio. Hi, Doctor.
Grazie. So should we adjourn this session and maybe talk some more another time?
Anytime.
Will I see you on Friday for seminar?
It's highly probable.
Highly probable?
Highly
Okay.
probable, yeah.
Okay.
I cannot promise because I have a niece, so niece has a birthday.
Oh.
But it seems to me that I am not invited to the first birthday, so she has a second birthday.
Okay.
So it might be that I'm doing some traveling, then I opt out, but I'll let you know.
Okay. So, well, in case you come, well, let me know then, because in case you come, maybe you present a little bit of your work to us. Otherwise, we'll see each other another time.
Okay, looking forward.
Okay. Grazie, Tristan.
Antonio, have a great day.
You too. I'll see you soon, huh?
Bye-bye.
Ciao.